Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Other Side of Addiction. I'm your host, Al Richards. We're going to go in a little different direction on this show. Now, we've talked about there is hope in healing. We've talked about that on quite a few shows, and we're going to talk about that again today. And guys, those who watch this show a lot, who are in long-term recovery or just starting their journey, or even those that have loved ones that are going through it. We've started to learn, that there's a lot of stuff behind it. And I hope that you guys have learned by watching this show that it's not the substance that's causing the addiction. It's something that's happened in their lives, right? I mean, I lost my job of 24 years due to my weekend alcohol and cocaine use. And I blamed it on the stress of my job. And as I started really doing some more soul searching, I started realizing there was a lot more to it than just that. I was really trying to cover up a lot of other pains that's happened in my life. So our guest today, Gilma, that's how they say it, right? Gilma, right?
Ma's the last name.
And Ma's the last name. Love this gentleman. I was introduced to him at the West Jordan Stampede Rodeo. And a lot of you guys know that I've been on the committee for about 14, 15 years. And one of the gals, one of my lovely friends, Marlene in the tent said, "Hey, you should go out there and talk to Gilma, who's out there doing the petting zoo." And I'm like, "Oh, really?" And she's like, "Yeah." So I go out there and introduce myself to him. And both of us, guys, we sat out there and started chatting for about 20 minutes to a half hour. And I started learning so much about this man and this man's story. And I knew immediately this was somebody that I wanted to have on the show. So Gilma, thank you so much for being here. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Al.
Yeah, man, you've gone through a heck of a life, right? I mean, you and I are pretty close to the same age.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because everyone has a flipping story. Everyone has a story. And even a lot of times when we're going through personal things, right, we think we're the only ones going through it.
Yeah.
How we think that is beyond me, but we do. It's just, I guess, our human nature. And then you start talking and you start sharing a story and you start realizing there are a lot of people out there that are going through the same thing that you've gone through. Some worse, some not so bad. Some you just scratch your head and going, "How the heck are you still here?" Right? And that was kind of pretty much your story as well.
It was. I grew up here in Utah in a very well-to-do family and very well respected in the community. A small town. Back then it was small, now it's quite large. But
yeah. Too large now.
Too large.
Yeah.
But and everybody thought we were the perfect family. And behind closed doors, it was anything but heaven.
Wow.
That's for sure. And I didn't know different. But I reached out as much as I could to try and let people know to ask for help, as kids do.
Yeah.
And it would get laughed off or swept under the rug, or and the first 7 years I don't remember a whole lot. There's a couple of memories I have, but for most of it I blocked it, and I didn't understand why, at the time.
Yeah.
And of course mental health help has come a long way in the years. They didn't have the resources back then, and I think things were looked at a lot differently. But I do remember a lot of the physical abuse and the mental, emotional, spiritual abuse that happened. And I realize now I'm not, like I said, I'm not the only one.
Right.
Going through it, I thought that this is wrong. This isn't what it's supposed to be. And yet, it had a big impact. And we all deal with trauma differently. And every one of us are going to go through trauma of some sort.
It's part of life.
Part of
right?
life, yeah. And, we all have different ways of dealing with it. I think the stereotypical way of how I thought, or maybe was taught, I don't know, that you know, men who dealt with trauma would become abused.
Yeah.
Abuse. So
Yes.
men who dealt with abuse would become abusers, and women who dealt with it would become self-harming. And no, I fought against that. I didn't want to be like that. And yet in our family, we, you know, there is some of that. And yeah, it was just, I dealt the best I could, and I coped the best I could with the trauma I had. For me, it was animals. I gravitated towards animals because they were unconditional love. Didn't matter what I did or said or didn't do. Very forgiving, and always full of love. And you know, unlike most of the people I dealt with growing up, I didn't, you know, it's the old saying that the more I get to know people, the more I like animals.
Well, yeah, because people can be very, very mean,
They can,
right?
They
Rude, ignorant. Yeah, and I'm still trying to figure out why that is, right? And I really don't think it has to do with any of us who are getting the abuse. It's something that they're going through, right? And
Right.
they're just using it on us
Right.
as the scapegoat, basically.
Yeah, and they're processing
Processing.
whatever they're going through. And there's the old saying that hurting people hurt people. And so, you know, I try to remember that when somebody is lashing out. I'm not always the best at remembering to see that in them. But I didn't, you know, long story short, I didn't get professional help. Animals were my therapy, but because I didn't get the help I needed, I end up gravitating towards what was familiar, and ended up in a very codependent relationship. And I was never good enough, and things always got turned on me, and somehow by, you know, getting a backbone and trying to stand up for myself, I was abusive. If I said no, I was abusive.
Yeah.
And it was flipped on me, and I'm anything but abusive. But you know, that was kind of the, you know, how some of that relationship was.
Did you even find yourself, because I have, and that's the reason why I'm asking this, is you actually start believing it, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you start
Yeah.
thinking, you're going, gosh, am I really? Okay, I didn't think what I did was. However, do I not remember something that I did? Or
Well, and before I mean, jumping ahead, I eventually got professional help and learned to set boundaries and things. But before getting that help, yeah, it was very much that way. And it was like, don't rock the boat. Yeah, accept responsibility, take it. And, you know, I studied success principles, and one, I can't even remember the author or the reference, but one of the things we were taught is that in, you know, to save your relationship, you accept responsibility, and you know, be it sales or marriage or, you know, whatever, that you diffuse the situation by saying, oh, I'm so sorry, oh, I should have done this, and you take the responsibility for it. But all that did was feed the narcissism of the other side, and the abuse didn't stop. It didn't fix the situation. It took the immediate conflict away, but it didn't heal
yeah,
the situation. It just continued, and it taught the other party to, you know, that it was okay to not respect your boundaries. It was okay to abuse you, but that, you know, that was some of the training I've been given, and
yeah.
and success principles. And I was, you know, looking back now, I think, boy, I wish I'd understood. I wish I'd understood boundaries back then.
Right.
You know? It's,
You know, and isn't that crazy? Because talking about boundaries, I've had to learn the boundaries too, right? With the battle I've gone through with my wife's addiction,
Mhm.
right? Because I'd go to AA meetings with her and I'd hear boundaries and triggers and words like that. I just thought it was for them. I did not have a clue that I had boundaries and I
Yes,
had
it's
triggers.
okay for you to say that.
Right?
Yeah.
I had no clue on that. Once I started figuring that out, I mean, it does cause some issues,
Yeah,
in certain ways, really. However, when you're staying inside your circle or inside your box, it helps. It really does help. It doesn't seem like it, but as you start connecting the dots backwards, you start realizing it does help you to know that you have those, right? Because you're protecting yourself in a healthy way.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and eventually I had to set some pretty strict boundaries to protect myself, and that obviously it changed the marriage.
Yeah.
And that relationship ended. Of course, some of the cycles continued because you're still associated,
Mhm.
having kids and stuff. But I don't know how much to. Well, I'll just share. I mean, you already know my story, I'll share,
Yes.
but for the listeners,
Okay.
I can share that the physical abuse, the mental abuse, and I'm not here to compare two stories worse,
Right.
because we all have the trauma, and it doesn't matter. It all sucks, and and it's not enjoyable for anybody, regardless of what it is, and maybe in the right setting to share the particulars would be okay to help people understand that they're not alone. They're not the only one who went through it. But for now, just to say, I remembered that and tried to get that past it as best I could. But because I didn't remember the first 7 years, my abuser had access to my kids.
Mm.
And also, and they were suffering. So the cycle of abuse wasn't being broken. Even though I wasn't carrying it on, it was still being carried on.
Yeah. The links were still
Links were
attached.
still attached.
Yeah.
Something happens in my mid-40s. My oldest daughter attempted suicide. That year, there was probably 6 attempts.
Jeez.
And she wasn't really opening up about why she'd go into treatment centers and hospitals. And she knew she'd learned all the lingo and knew how to say the right things and get out. It wasn't until her last attempt, and I was going through the recall of those 7 years, that she finally felt safe to tell us why she was attempting. In my case, my mother was the abuser. And, looking back now, I'm like, normal people don't do what my mother did.
Yeah.
Something must have happened to her, and she became that percentage that became a perpetuator of the abuse. And because you just don't think of the kind of things she did on your, I mean, it came from somewhere, and it continued. But well, on my daughter's first attempt at suicide, there was a conflict with my parents over who wanted to have a family prayer and fast for her, and their response to it triggered me. But and all the issues and things I thought I'd gotten past with how they how they treated me came back, and it was troubling enough. I finally went and got professional help to deal with all the anger. I had a lot of anger that was hiding all the other emotions that were underneath. And in the process of dealing with it, and I know this isn't religious podcast per se, but it's from me, my perspective, having been raised very religiously, and then going through the hypocrisy and the dichotomy of what was being preached and what was being lived.
Right.
It was confusing. I joined the Army at 17 to get away from that hypocrisy, to get out of Utah. But I'd had enough spiritual experiences, personal spiritual experiences, that had been belittled by my mother and ridiculed. But I'd had a relationship with God. I grew up thinking God was angry at me all the time.
Yeah.
That
Isn't that crazy how we think that, right?
Yeah.
We've done something wrong and he's paying us back.
Yeah, he's got all these commandments, and there's no way on earth I can keep.
Right.
all
No one
those.
can. No one can.
And I looked at him as this set of rules that if I broke them, he was going to hit me with a lightning bolt or send me to hell or something.
Yeah, right.
And that he was always angry. And from my experience growing up, if he's a father, and the only father or parental figures I had were anything but kind to us, I mean, we begin the shit beat. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
I can.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But we could be getting the shit beat out of us, and having bloodied, not just a spanking, but bloodied
Jeez,
shit.
almighty.
And the phone would ring, and we go from this screaming monster to, "Oh, hello, how are you doing, sister or brother so and so?" And just confusing the hell out of me. I was like, but I joined the Army to get away from it all. And at some point on my own out in the Army, I realized I knew that God wasn't that, but I'd had enough spiritual experiences to know that there's something to it.
The difference.
The
between
difference
the two.
between what was being lived and
Everything that I've gone through too, with losing my job and my wife's addiction and all that, and both sides of our family was raised LDS.
Mhm.
And I got out of the church when I was like 13, and then I went back before my grandma passed, because she was, please go back to church, and I wanted to please her,
Mhm.
because I was so close to my grandma. And anyway, I just could not feel the spirituality going into a building that I could, as if I went on a hike up in the mountains, got away from life, and just sat down on a rock or on a tree stump and had a conversation. And literally I would have a conversation. Like, I could hear answers to my head, and sometimes I'd hear, I'm not sure, and I don't know if that was my own subconscious kicking in, because I was told that if you're questioning things, that's not God and that's not your Holy Spirit. That's your subconscious questioning things. But so I finally got to realize the difference between the two as well.
And that's how my prayers have always been. It's a conversation. I don't kneel down, and I don't do the pious, mock piety thing. And if he's really a father, I'm going to have that kind of a conversation. Now, I didn't have a father that I had that kind of a relationship with, and so it was hard for me to kind of figure that out. But that's how it was, and I'd be, I finally realized that the church wasn't perfect, but the gospel is.
Mm-hmm.
And the church or the people that are in it, they're living the best they can. They're going, they're doing their own thing, but the gospel's there, and the gospel is Jesus Christ. And I ended up serving the mission. I still struggled, with some of the hypocrisy, and I still struggled with the condemnation for not being perfect, on the outward appearance to people.
Yeah.
And certain things that people focus on the minutia and miss the big picture. You know, and so I'd struggle through my life, but I had a relationship with him, and it was awkward because I hadn't had one growing up. You know, with a lot of people I have, you know, their best friends or their father or their mother or whatever. You know, I've got just went to my 40th class reunion, and some of my friends from high school, they, you know, we talked about their best friend in the world was their dad. And I think, man, I would have loved to have that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That would have
Yeah.
been very helpful.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't envy them. I honor them that they had that. I'm glad that they did.
Yeah.
But as I look at that, I leaned on that as I started going through therapy to deal with the anger I still had. And my daughter was in the hospital, and I went to a therapist, and they said, you know, based on everything you told us, because I went into depth into all of the things I did remember, and where all my anger was coming from. And therapist said, you know, it'd probably take about 3 years of therapy, a couple of times a week, to get you healthy. And I thought, well, you know, how do you define that? But 3 years, that's a long time.
Right.
You can't just give me a pill, fix me.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. No kidding. Right.
Yeah. What's my prescription? Anyways, but she did say, she said, look, if you involve the Savior and the atonement in your life, in the healing process, we can cut that time in half. Year and a half still seemed like a long time, but I had sort of dementia, a 2-year dementia, and I did a year and a half. Okay, but
Yeah.
let's get started.
Yeah. Let's go.
And she's wait, and she knew stuff from what I told her. She and her experience, she'd known enough to know what was coming. About the 7 years I forgot. I didn't. I just, you know, I want to get better.
Yeah.
And she mentioned, she said, well, the Savior is not a spotlight. He doesn't just zoom in on this little area of our life and fix that. He's a floodlight. And he's going to illuminate all the dark corners, and we're going to sweep it all out. And she gave me the warning. I had no clue what was coming.
How could you though? I mean, because I can see yourself picturing that, right? Okay, well, I've got some dirty corners. Yeah.
Whatever.
Get the broom, let's get the dustpan, let's throw the damn things in the garbage.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
get it finished.
Yeah.
And when I going through the healing process and dealing it at some point down the road, I don't know how many months it was into the healing, I was finally safe enough for those memories to open back up, and as an adult process the sexual abuse.
Wow.
And you know, from a guy's perspective, and from my understanding, that meant if I'd been abused, then I was going to become an abuser. That's how I thought about it. I was like, no, I can't accept that I've been abused, because that means therefore.
Yeah, right.
And
that was tattooed on you as well.
it was. And there were things that I remembered, you know, from where I was processing some things that happened to me, and I had a lot of shame and guilt for doing that. I didn't understand, you know, but you know, as a child, you know, I can look back now as an adult and say, yeah, I was processing what was happening. But I carried all that shame inside, you know, and God was mad at me all the time, you know.
Yeah.
But she pointed out to me when I expressed to her my fear that if I'd been abused, then I'm an abuser. And she said, well, a lot of people that's been a common misconception. And she pointed out that statistically, a third of victims, male or female, doesn't matter which, a third of them become abusers. Yes. But a third of them are exactly the opposite. They fight against it. They're vigilante. And they might have other unhealthy coping skills or healthy coping skills.
Right.
You know, for me, work became my addiction. You know, I'd lose myself in work, or animals. You know, maybe to the point of extreme. I had too many animals. But I thought, oh, okay, well, what's the other third? And she pointed out unhealthy coping skills, the addictions and things like that. And so I left my two brothers and I. We went through very similar things, I'm certain of it. And brothers who I know was a pedophile.
Yeah.
And another brother who, so that one became like the abuser, and then another brother who was coped with some addictions to numb the pain. And my addiction was work and animals, but for the most part, I had a very successful life and career. And everything I did was to prove my worth. Looking back now,
yeah, connecting the dots backwards.
I can look at sales careers I've had and be top in the country, top in the divisions or whatever, in the military, soldier of the cycle, always trying to be the best to earn love and to earn recognition and to prove not just to others but myself,
right,
that I had worth and that I was worth loving. And
however, with you saying that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, we're doing our best to justify our worth by doing what we're doing, hoping that others will see that, right? So basically, it's not through us ourselves. We're trying to get that justification from outside because we didn't have it from the outside before, not realizing it's us that's going to make ourselves happy. No one else, no other material thing. And I think that even says that in the Bible somewhere, where it doesn't, there's no material thing. There's no one else. The only person that can make you happy within is you. Yeah. Right. Because I did the exact same thing you did. I mean, I didn't get told I was, we're so proud of you, son. Right. And it's nothing against my parents either, because they did what they did by how they were raised, right? Okay, it's just the mold going into the same mold, right? Everything is being poured in the same mold. And I was constantly looking for that too. Constantly looking for that. And I did through the majority of my adulthood, in all honesty, right? Because other than an anger issue, which I had a bad anger issue that in my mid-20s, I nipped that in the bud, 6 months of therapy to learn how to control that thing. And I learned what was causing it, or when the danger was coming, when I could start seeing the blinders coming in. I'm like, okay. I got tools. What can I use? What can I use to help me get away from this? Right. So it's I think we do that. And I don't know what the percentage of, but I really do believe that the majority of our listeners have gone through that we're looking for outside justification to make ourselves feel worth when it's all already right here.
And I used to teach that stuff in positive motivational seminars and stuff that I get to speak at and do different things and tell people, you got seeds of greatness in you, and you have it within you. And yet the whole time, everything I was doing was the proof that I had the seeds of greatness. to say, see,
I told you.
Yeah. But when I went through the therapy, as I went through the memory recall, probably the darkest days of my life. I mean, as a teenager, I'd attempted suicide. I ended up in the hospital, and about the same age my daughter was. Maybe you're Sophie Forrest-John younger than me, but I'm not really still that many. But it was dealing with that and all the other stuff that happened to change life, with feelings of self-worth, all that other stuff, like going on behind closed doors at home on top of it. Obviously the sexual abuse ended probably when I was about 7. The physical abuse ended when I was about 14. My mother tried to stab me one day.
Oh, my gosh.
She was beating my brother, and he was bleeding. And I intervened. He and I had probably been having sibling
Yeah,
argument
yeah,
or something
like we do.
that set her
Yeah,
off, and she came down and was laying into me, and I blocked her blows. So she realized, okay, turned from me and went on my little brother, who's probably 7 at the time, and had him cornered, and I can still picture the exact scenario in the corner of the closet and just wailing on him. That blood coming inside. I stopped there, and she turned, and she was using a wire slice water to beat him, and it was cutting his face.
oh, man.
And I broke the tip of it off. So she had the metal staff and tried to stab me with it. And I blocked it, knocked her out. It knocked her down. I don't know if I knocked her out, but I knocked her down. And he just screamed at me, wait till you got this on. And when he got home, what he saw when he walked in the house was her sitting on the kitchen floor in a fetal position, rocking back and forth, saying my name over and over. I didn't know any of this till, had a sister who witnessed it and told me, 30 years later, that
Wow.
this is what went on. She'd come up and taken a pan out, a big old cast iron pan out from under the counter, and started hitting herself and giving herself bruises and ripping her hair out and tearing her shirt and scratching herself. And he came in the house, that's what he saw. So she never said I did that to her, but that's what he got. And he came down and tried to kill me. Had me by the throat up against the wall, was pounding on the, I was probably 3 feet off the ground.
Jeez almighty.
Pounding on my chest to get it to stop. And anyway, so I'm jumping all over the place,
But
but
that's okay. Yeah, that's all right.
but as part of my therapy, before the memories, the sexual abuse memories came back, therapist had me write a letter to him, telling him how I felt, because it wasn't safe to try and have a conversation. He was an attorney. He very
Right.
skilled at arguing and shutting you down.
Yeah.
And so wrote him a letter and said, if you can be civil, if you want to talk about this, call me back. Otherwise, I would get left. Pretty much determined to separate myself from the family at that point, because it was obvious that they didn't have my kids' best interests at heart. Some things they did, and safer for us and family just to sever ties. And he called me back that night and said, well, I read your letter, and all I can say is you were a shitty kid and you deserve everything you got. Last words my dad ever said to me.
Oh my heavens.
And anyway, it was shortly after that when the other memories started coming back. And as I went through those memories of what my mother had done, I relived. I became that little 4 or 5.
That little boy was coming out.
And
Yeah.
I mean, physically, emotionally, mentally, I was still thinking like an adult, but my body wasn't responding. And for about 3 or 4 months, every day, memories coming up and processing and going through them and writing them down, because I couldn't talk. Sometimes I couldn't even write. I was writing like a 5-year-old. It was actually in that mindset of reliving that.
Jeez.
And what it was hell. And I was suicidal again, because part of the conditioning was no one's going to believe you. Might as well just kill yourself, or if you tell anyone, they'll lock you up in a mental institution, because I think you're crazy. No one would believe that your mother would do it.
And you said that earlier in the show, right? And you went somewhere else, and I was really interested in what you were saying, because I was gonna say, you and I were brought up in the days where kids were to be seen, not
Not
heard,
heard. You don't
right?
talk- Yeah. You don't talk.
You don't say anything, you don't talk back, and you know, I had a guest that was on our show too, a phenomenal young man. Yeah, I just love the guy to death, and he works at the Other Side Academy, and he was sexually assaulted at age 5. And he went home and told his dad what happened. And his dad beat the living crap out of him, called him a liar. And the reason why is because it was his dad's brother that did it to him. And he got sexually abused for another 9 years. So again, you're supposed to be seen, not heard, right? Because no one believes what a kid says. Yeah.
Well, once I remembered, my daughter was able to come forward and tell us why she was in that princess. So that hopefully that helped her healing.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a lot of pain, and going through it, I realized there's got to be some purpose in this pain, because I still had faith in God that, you know, I mean, I was mad at him. I was angry.
Oh yeah, I could see how.
I went up the mountains. I went up with guns, and you know, not necessarily the wisest choice, but I had a hunting license and I was going hunting. And I spooked up the biggest bull elk I've ever seen, and I should have shot him, but that's not why I was there that day. I was there that day to go yell and swear to God.
Yeah.
And I did.
Shoot in the sky.
Yeah. Basically, I just,
Yeah.
you know, it's the punching the punching bag kind of thing, you know, getting that anger and that frustration out. And if I killed the elk, then I would have had to get it and clean it and take, you know,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't have been able to accomplish what I needed to that day. And I did. I went up on the mountain in the middle of a snowstorm, and I swooped that elk probably half hour into my hike. And I could have dropped it, but it continued on up to a secluded spot that I picked out. And I yelled at him and I swore at him and I was mad at him, like, trying to understand, you know, you're all powerful. Why do you let this shit happen?
Yeah, right.
Why does this keep going on? And on, you know, and we had a conversation, and I think I gained some understanding, and I started to understand the atonement of Jesus Christ a little bit. And I started to understand that he knew it was going to happen. And whatever eternal laws there are, that with this comes this. And if we had this, we would have had something, you know. So it's a give and take. And it's the law of opposites or whatever, but provided a certainly provided the atonement of Jesus Christ to do all our things. And for me, I kind of latched onto that, and that, you know, that helped. But I still had to find it. I've gone through all this. What good is it? What am I supposed to learn from it? What, there's got to be purpose. There has to be purpose in the pain I've been through. And I had been volunteering, because when I got married, we ended up divorced eventually after I got healthy. But the gal had married me, it was her or the animals. You know, when we were dating and engaged, I had all sorts of animals, and she pulled me aside the day we were going in to notify my family that we were engaged.
Yeah.
Before we went in, she said, "Hey, Brad, you realize it's me or the animals, don't you?" And I'm young and dumb. What do you do? So
Yeah.
I volunteered at animal control to get my animal fixed for years. And at the time this was going on, we were volunteering up at Davis County, and found out they were euthanizing physically abused horses. You know, it triggered me. I got angry. I said, but they didn't euthanize me.
Right, no kidding.
But I got mad. I said, "You're giving the death sentence to the victim. That's not fair." And I probably overreacted a bit. I understand that if the animal hurts somebody, they get sued and yeah, but still, there's gotta be something. And they just looked at me and said, we'll do something about it. And I realized this is my toothpaste. I can't go back and save that little boy. I love what's his name with the Operation Underground Railroad.
Yeah,
Baldwin or something, anyways.
I've met him one time before, a long time ago, at a golf tournament, but
But
yeah,
he's doing something about
yeah,
it, yeah,
right,
and
yeah,
but I can't, I couldn't go back and look the little boy that it happened to, but moving forward, I could help somebody or something, and so I didn't have the insights and stuff that he had to be able to help,
hmm,
those are being, in human trafficking,
yeah,
but I could help the animals that were being abused, so they didn't have to be used. I knew nothing about horses. I mean, my uncles had them, and I rode them once a year for half an hour. But as my wife and I got divorced, he let her have the house. I went and bought a ranch and started a rescue for physically abused horses. And I got that crap ate them because they're angry, they're scared.
yeah, of course. Yeah.
And I didn't know what I was doing. I had no training. I to this day I've never watched the video on how to train a horse. I've never watched the whatever that show was on the horse, but I haven't even seen that or read the book. I just figured, I've been a wrestling coach, I've been a school teacher, and a lot of my wrestling kids had rough backgrounds. But once they were in that wrestling room, they knew Coach loved them, and that I believed in them, and I wanted to teach them success principles. And when they felt that positive affirmation,
That connection,
they would bust their butts to be the best they could on that night, to be the best wrestler, to the best athlete, and they would give their everything to get that accolades and to get the pat on the back and say, well done. I figured out the horse has got to be the same way. You just got to love them. The old adage, horse fights you, you buy him back, tell me you're in charge. Doesn't work. It's they're sentient beings. They have those feelings, and so that's where it started. I started doing that. I still had a full-time job. I've been talking the country for years with the company I was with, but I worked for a pharmaceutical company, and very large income. I had a very successful business outside of that, and I was making a very decent wage.
yeah,
But after the divorce, a lot of things happened. The business kind of fell apart. The company laid off 23,000 employees. And what do you do? I decided that I needed to change my name from what I'd grown up with. And so as I looked at things, when I was a missionary in Korea, my given name, surname, meant water chicken. So translated, I'd say, hi, I know the water chicken. You want to hear about Jesus? And they could never get past water chicken. They were happened to it.
I could see why, right?
So the mission president said, now you need a new name. And it's by the way they picked, I guess my last name began with M. So they picked a Korean name that begins with M. And the one they put on was Ma, which in that culture, Ma means horse. And it means the representative, the horse or the mate would be a symbol or signet that the emperor would give to whoever was his emissary. So whoever represented the emperor, their name got changed, and they now became the Ma family. And they were given a mate to show people, prove, saying, I'm here as a representative of the emperor, which as a missionary made sense.
Right.
You're representing the Savior. So, and then my first name was Chung Do, which meant righteous path. So horse of the righteous path. And it was very accepted and very honorific. And So when I went to pick a new last name, I know I jumped everywhere. It's probably my ADHD.
Oh,
But as I was going through what kind of last names could I use?
yeah.
I thought, well, there's Andersons and Johnsons and the sons of who. I thought I could be bitch son. That would that wouldn't go over very well at church.
Right.
So we put that out the window,
All
but
right,
I thought it was, and it would remind me of the negatives.
Right.
So to go positive, I went with mom as the last name. Took me the longest time to come up with the first that I wanted. But a couple of different things led me to GIL, because it's just growing in love. I wasn't going to fall in love again. And so instead of writing love, so and so, I would write growing in love. But then I realized it has so many more meanings. God is love.
Yeah.
And that's, I just kind of gravitated to that because that's a message that would give purpose that I could teach and help people who, like us, had a less than stellar childhood or less than stellar example of who God really is.
Yeah. Right.
He's not some angry prison warden waiting up there with a list of rules saying, "Oh, you broke that one, boom, 10 days in solitary," or
Yeah. Right.
that he's all love, and I want to share that message. So that makes perfect sense to go,
Gil.
Gil will be my new name and help me disassociate from the trauma of my childhood and the negative experiences. Yeah, I had some good ones interspersed in there. We all do.
Yeah.
But he gave me a fresh start over, and moving forward, I can be, and rescuing these horses, armor Gil, or it's whatever. But every time someone calls me Gil, every time I say it, I remember God is in it. And I hear that, and I get to witness to that. But that's who he is. Those commandments, those list of rules, come from a loving Heavenly Father that understands eternal laws and principles that we don't. And our whole purpose here is to love each other, and learn to love each other. I still struggle with that. There's some people I don't.
Well, yeah.
No.
Yeah. Well, I like to put it in the way that I don't know. It would be hard for me to say I love you, because a lot of my buddies and we say that to each other.
Yeah.
Hey, love you, brother.
Yeah.
My mom even made a comment the other day. She goes, "Man, you sure are in love with a lot of people." It's like, it's because we're sharing love, right?
Yeah.
However, there are some where I know I wouldn't say that.
Mhm.
I'll still treat them respectfully,
Right.
but keep your distance.
Yeah.
Because I'd rather have you stay over there, because I don't want you in my circle.
Amen.
Yeah, right.
But
Yeah.
and love is it's a verb. It is a noun, but it's a verb because it's acting, it's serving each other, and with kindness, with not the way I was raised.
Right.
It's and so I have a hard time understanding some of the family relationships but all I can do is move forward and say, yeah, my life wasn't ideal, but I know that God is love, and to give me purpose in the pain of what I've been through, I can share that knowledge with other people, and I can make a difference in other people's lives. I can make a difference in the animals. And so we started the rescue, and then when the company laid, 23,000 was off. At that point, I had too many college degrees. I had made too much money that no one was willing to hire me. It just,
Yeah.
it started.
Especially at the age,
Yeah,
right?
the age.
That you were at. Yeah.
And,
where you was at.
So I either had to get rid of that hobby, the few horses I'd rescued to that point, because it's expensive, or I had to turn it into something to pay for itself. And so I, at that time, found a location that said, look, can I build something here to do pony rides? And that's where we started. And even there, we had conflict and not everyone's nice, but
Yeah.
that was 11 years ago. I went for 11 years without an income, just selling everything I owned. Uh, my gun collection, my fossil collection, my furniture,
Wow.
just to feed the animals. And word spread rapidly. And at the time, I was kind of the only one doing it in the Western United States on a big scale. There
Mhm.
might have been some little ones here or there, but as it got too much, so I created a network of other existing rescues that will take in the unwanted, neglected, malnourished, and let them know this is what's going on with the animal control. They have to put them down. If you'll step in, I don't have to drive 12 hours one way to come get a horse that's right in your backyard.
Yeah.
And all they need is love. And I could talk them through. I said, if you ever get one that's too hard to handle, but whatever the horse does to me tells in comparison to what I went through as a child. I'm not afraid. And when I walk in with that horse, they're not going to smell fear. They're not going to smell anger on me, all the pheromones we get off.
Yeah.
And they're very hypersensitive to that. They might bite me, they might kick me. I'm not going to kick back. I'm not going to bite back. And I've had to be firm with a couple of them, but I can do that without malice. And it's funny, not everyone's, you're not going to make everybody happy.
No.
Somebody accused me of abusing horse because I lassoed it. And it choked itself out because it was scared and fighting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Put a halter on it. An hour and a half later, I was riding that horse. Because once I got close enough to the horse, I couldn't get close to it. And I spent a year just giving it time. Finally, I said, yeah, we're going to dance.
Yeah. Enough's enough.
And within an hour and a half, I was riding the horse. And I'm not trained in any of this technique. I just give them love. And I figure God loves us. We get love in return. We're gonna, most of them are gonna be a mirror. And the memories in their mirror, the filters that they're seeing me through is that abuse they've had.
Oh yeah.
So I just have to give them enough experiences that
reprograms, just like we're all reprogramming ourselves, right? Even though that subconscious is very quick to kick that thing to the top. I like to look at it a lot of times as like a sliver, even with the work that I do, I get slivers every now and then. Even though I wear gloves, you still get that sliver, and if you don't take care of it, pretty soon it starts festering and getting very painful, and then pretty soon it starts turning white, and that's what all our emotions do, right? If we don't take
the same way.
Yeah, and now I'm a firm believer too that God gave us all these emotions for a reason, to feel them.
Right.
Society has gotten us to believe you're not supposed to feel your emotions. You're supposed to bear them. Men aren't supposed to cry,
right.
And you're supposed to be tough, and you're not supposed to do this, and you can't go to therapy because if you are, you're a wussy. There's something wrong with you, and you're not supposed to have issues. Bull crap.
Right.
Bull crap.
There's a stigma that prevents healing for so many people.
Right.
That is wrong.
It's totally wrong. Now, it's like I've had quite a few of our guests tell me, and some really good friends of mine. It's like, allow those feelings allow them to feel, right?
Yeah.
You're allowed to feel them.
You're supposed
to. Just don't stay stuck there, right?
Right.
Let the emotions take its course.
Right.
Let them take its course, work yourself through it, and then just slowly start working yourself back. Because the more that we hold them in, that was some of my anger issue back in my 20s, right? I mean, I grew up around it. When things didn't go right, you threw things, you punched things, you kicked things. If someone got in your face, you yelled and screamed at it. That's how I thought you reacted to it. Come to find out, no, especially when someone you cared about's laying on the ground because you hurt them, right? And it's all because of your emotions, because I was keeping everything in here. Now I get in trouble because I say what I'm feeling, and sometimes it doesn't come out so right, and I'm working on getting better at that as well. However, we're allowed to feel these feelings, and I think even you're allowing your animals to go through those feelings, right? You're allowing them to do the same doggone thing while they're working on their healing.
Exactly. And that's, and that's what we want them to learn. It's this rescue, it's called, well, it's been called the Farm at Gardner Village. Gardner Village has asked us not to use that name anymore after 11 years.
Oh, wow,
So,
okay.
That's a long,
All
story,
right,
but,
yeah.
but again, not everyone's gonna see things the way you do. So we now go by the Farm Animal Rescue.
And that's, let me see.
It's
Want
also
our audience
our,
to
yeah,
just-
our
Oh, it's
website
right
is
here.
also the rescuefarm.com.
Yeah,
So, or just the farm.
okay,
It's a 501c3. If you go to the rescuefarm.com, that'll take you, to all the stuff you need to find. And we have social media. I am a little passive aggressive. So when they had us change our Google page, which, I mean, our legal 501c3 name is the Farm at Gardner Village.
okay,
I'm not changing that. But when I changed the Google page for that, I changed it to the Farm Animal Rescue. And then in bold print, formerly known as the Farm at Gardner Village. But we branded that,
right,
that's what we branded.
yeah,
But here's what's happened. In the time we've had that, it's gotten so large, I can't possibly do it. And I've gotten a lot older and I don't have the physical ability. And
Right.
I've been hit many times and concussions and all the things I've been through. I just can't do all that needs to be done anymore. And so we've opened up to a lot of volunteers that come. And what's interesting, and I've seen it with a large percentage of those who come in to volunteer, right? They're coming because of what the animals do. They're coming in because they're hurting. They're dealing with trauma of some sort. A lot of them are teenage kids that are going through not only hormonal changes, but holy crap, it goes on at junior high and high school. And, how people treat each other. And here's a safe place where we treat them like we do the animals, with love and patience. And we have people from all different religious backgrounds or non-religious, different political persuasions and different belief systems and preferences and all that stuff. But when they're serving the animals, none of that matters.
right,
And for some of them that it does, we're able to talk them through it and say, hey, this needs to be a safe place for everybody. So learn, yes, it's okay for you to have boundaries, but it's okay for them to have boundaries too.
yeah,
And you need to respect that. And it's a training ground for these kids, but adults. And because we're a 501c3, we have treatment centers that part of their treatment is learning service. And they'll come in and they'll serve the animals. And I'll get to tell them my story that, yeah, I had the choice. I had the choice of which one of those three groups I was going to fall in. I didn't understand that I had that choice. I was just fortunate enough that I fell into the animals, into the positive coping skill instead of negative one or perpetuating. And it doesn't make me better than my brothers. Okay, it's how it all fell out.
yeah,
And, but for the grace of God, I could have been any one of those. And I'm able to share with these people because they're code ordered. Because of their coping skills dealing with some trauma. And now they're learning, they're getting the tools to learn how to cope in a positive way. And it's the scriptures talk about. You lose yourself in the service of others, you find yourself.
you find yourself.
You do. And that is the best healing. There is hope and healing when you're serving others. And you start to realize that you've had a pretty crappy life.
Yeah,
And you're serving them. That's where love comes in. That's when you can say, I love you to my buddies, because you're serving them.
absolutely.
Those
Yeah,
are the people you hang out with, you do things with, you do things for. And it's because of that love. And yeah, you do love them. You feel that love because you're serving. And those people start serving those animals. And those animals that have been through abuse, they recognize it. And to watch the animal that a year ago was kicking the shit out of me, I mean, matter of fact, right now I have 3 broken ribs
Oh, jeez.
and a swollen leg. My wife doesn't know about this one yet.
Wow. Keep your sock on.
Yeah. And I didn't.
We'll bleep that second.
Well, no, I didn't tell her where I was going, so
Oh,
she.
okay,
she's
all
not
right,
watching
all
this
right,
tonight.
good.
Because I knew that might come.
Yeah.
But you know, and it stresses her out that I do these things, and I don't have a death wish. I'm just not afraid of the animal, and I have a faith in God that He's going to protect me, because what I'm doing is making a difference.
Yes,
in
absolutely.
life. Not just the animals, because we rescue the animals. They in turn rescue the people that come to serve.
Yeah.
And the loves of that horse can turn and give to that person that is hurting, the bunny that they sit and hold in their arms and pet, that they can talk to and tell all the shitty things that's gone on in their life
Yeah,
that
right.
day, that won't tell anyone else.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it doesn't care what they're thinking. It doesn't care. It just loves them, just wants to give love back. You know, and to see the healing that goes on. And to, our current general manager at the farm, I've had to hire a few people. We hire a lot of adults with special needs, give them a sense of accomplishment, and
Yes.
and they bring us great spirit with them. But then we've hired a few others just to run the place. And the gal we ended up hiring, she came as a young mother, little girl. I think at the time she was probably 1 or 2 years clean, sober. And then she realized what we do is the service side and the volunteering. She started volunteering, bringing her daughter with her, and they had a little son. And they've been going up around the farm, and there came a point that I needed a manager to run things. And so I ended up hiring her because she had such a zest for life and such a positive love for people that it was perfect match. And now she's 6-7 years clean.
Wow.
She's been the manager. She runs the place. She does such a great job, and she can attest to what that service has done to help her and to help her kids, and she's just one of hundreds, if not thousands,
Oh, thousands.
that have come through. We had a guy that was court ordered a lot of hours. Got another one just called me today. He's got a lot of hours. But this one who came in, I think it was a DUI. But after his hours were up, that he had to serve there, he kept coming every day after work. Every weekend he was there. He was like, "This is a much better place than I used to spend my time. This is making a difference. And to watch his life change, and now he's got promotions at work, and he's, and his whole life is a lot more positives in it. And I watch people like that, and person after person after person that's come through. Some of them stay for a while, some stay longer. But the impact it has on their lives, their purpose,
Oh
and
my gosh,
and the
yes.
pain that led to the creation of this 501c3. There's purpose in the pain that inspired the rescue that now rescues people as well as animals. And I'm not some great therapist. I'm not, I've just been through hell, and I can acknowledge we all go through hell.
Yeah.
I can acknowledge that I'm not a perfect person, but God loves me. And He's all about love. And He wants the best for me and
Everyone else, right?
and everyone else.
Yeah.
And I'll share this one story. I don't know where we're on.
I don't know either. I haven't even looked at it. So we've been going over an hour, but continue your story.
I'll give you this one, and then we can ask whatever.
All right. Okay.
There was a point in my memory recall, the most horrendous about any of the memories I've had come back, and it was destroying me. I was that little 5, 6, kill a boy in a situation that I won't repeat, but I couldn't talk. It was so overwhelming and so heartbreaking. I don't normally kneel, but I couldn't yell out for help for anyone in the house. Couldn't say a prayer. Couldn't have that conversation with someone with out loud. So I rolled off the bed onto my knees and had a conversation with my God about, please help. This is, I can't cover this. And in an instant, I wasn't asleep. But in my mind's eye, I carried away where I could see I was in a field. Beautiful green field, lush green forest on the left. And as the field slopes upwards, there was a temple, a building at the top of the hill, and there's a whole lot of people, and we were communicating very excitedly with each other, and word spread through the crowd that the Savior was there. And we need to make our way into the building to meet with him. And so as I'm in line in the hallway outside of the hallway, and there was a oversight chair up front, a chair in the middle of the room, and there was a door at the back, and there were people in white around the door. And they opened the door, and the Savior walked in, and I immediately recognized him as I saw him. I knew who he was. He sat down and he motioned me into the room. I went inside and was like, and he cradled me like a little baby. And I have no idea how long he held me. But as he cradled and holding me like I'd never been held. All the pain, even that worst pain that I'd ever felt. That pain, all the other pain, everything was sucked out of me into him. And I felt a peace that, as the scriptures say, passes all understanding. I knew I was here. I knew that he had taken all that. It wasn't just our sins he came for, he felt our pains.
Yeah.
And he absorbed all that, and he felt that. And I was, it's my time to go and somebody else's to come in. And I sat after, gave him a kiss on the cheek and hugged him tight on the neck, and I went out the room. And as I exited the back door, he'd come in. The line outside of the building, it was waiting to go in the cinema. Very long line of people. And I looked at my mother was in that line.
Wow.
And I realized whatever happened to her to make her the monster she was, he can heal that.
Yeah.
And that his atonement applies to her. What she did and what happened to her, both, as much as it's best to me. And I knew that I left it in his hands at that point, and it's up to him how they worked that out.
Right.
But I realized that there was some hope in the healing. I still don't have a relationship there. She's since passed away, and my father's still alive, but we don't talk. No contact. And it's okay. They told me to know all that. And it's their choice to whether they let it go. And your listeners have the choice of whether they're going to continue on a healing path.
Yeah.
Or they're going to start. Maybe they haven't started on the healing path, they're just watching your program, and they get to make the decision. Which choice, which one of those third spot can they end up in? And am I willing to go through the pain of his help so that I can get on the other side?
Yeah.
Of the addiction or the pain, the trauma, the skewed thinking that is because of the trauma has made us have critical thinking errors. That am I going to get past that? Am I going to learn and get healthy and enjoy all that God has to give? There's so much.
Yes, there is.
You know, and yeah, hard times still happen. I mean, they're always going to have the hardest, but
Again, that's part of that growing,
It
right?
is.
Because
It
how
is.
can we grow if everything just goes hunky dory all the time?
right, well, and it
You know?
it helps us be more relatable to others because everybody else goes through it.
Yeah,
So
right.
you know, they're not going to relate too well, and if you didn't have anything about it, and not that we wish bad on anybody, but we're all going to go through it. We can't stop that, but we can heal.
Yeah.
And we can heal through the help of others. We can heal through the help of the Savior. We can heal through serving others. That whatever pain we've been through, we can find purpose
Absolutely.
in that pain. And
Well, the title of the show, There is Healing, right? Or there is hope in the healing.
open healing.
There is hope in the healing. And it's so true. There's so many things. You know, at the beginning of the show, I said this was going to be a unique show, right? It's a little different than what we've done before, and I'm so glad that you came on to share this, because it still falls under that addiction umbrella. I mean, it really does, right? Because the majority of the people who have battled with addiction have gone through some type of a trauma, some similar to yours, others not, but in different ways and forms. You know, they talk a lot in recovery is you have to give your life over to a higher power, whatever that higher power is for you. Some it's God, some it's a mountain, some it's a rock, some it's the universe. Some, I mean, they all have their own thing, and it doesn't matter as long as it's working for them, right? And you talked about service. They teach that in recovery. If you're out there serving others, what you will get from it is serving you. It's like I had a guest come on, his name's it was Clay. I believe it was Clay from the Other Side Academy. He says, my new high is freaking serving others. He goes, I never got a high like this on drugs and alcohol. And he goes, and I'm dead serious, right? Because the level that it puts him. He goes, however, what all of us find out is while we're out there lending our hand and helping others, going, here, take my hand. I know what you're going through because I went through it. It's really helping me in my journey. And that's what I love about doing the show, is because I used to do my recordings on Thursdays. I've moved into Fridays since August, the beginning of August. I used to call it my therapy Thursdays, because that was therapy for me, of having someone like yourself sit down and share their story. It was healing me with a lot of the stuff that I went through, not even realizing it was doing it until a certain period of time. And then I was going, my gosh, sometimes I'm just so emotionally exhausted after doing a couple shows. And it's because of the emotions that I'm going through during the show, right? Even if I'm sitting here, just like what I've done today with you, Gil, it's just sitting and listening to you. I could feel the emotions. I was going through all these emotions of things, and gosh, no wonder I was so drained afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Because it's helping everyone. It's helping everyone. And with what you were doing by giving that love back to those animals, and those animals giving that love back, and you said it, I don't know, probably half a dozen times during the show, they're really helping me. I'm not helping them, right? And it's such true. And it goes with us as individuals, as humans. We're an animal, right? We're just a different type, because we do mean things. We're ignorant, we're rude, we hurt people just like animals hurt other animals or people, right? And the forgiveness too. I'm so glad you shared that last bit of your story, because that has so much meaning and purpose behind it. A ton. So much. And everything that I've heard you say today, and people hear me talk about this on the show a lot, and I say it a lot because it's so freaking true, at least how I see it. you connect those dots backwards. Everything as terrible as it was for you that you went through, as well as your siblings and everything, it led you to be exactly right where you're supposed to be right this very minute. Even on your mission, the names that they gave you, they were sliding that in, going, okay, you don't know this yet, but you're going to need this, right? Because this is what you're going to be doing. We don't know it at the time. And then also the lessons. What are the lessons behind it? Yeah, there's so many times I've gone up in those mountains too, and I'm like, what is it? What am I supposed to be seeing here? What am I supposed to be figuring out? Because I don't get it yet. Give me something. Let me trip over a quarter. So I don't know, just something. Give me a sign so I know what it is. And sometimes it happens quick, and other times it doesn't happen at all. And other times it may be months down the road, and then that light bulb goes off, and I'm going, oh, okay, thank you, I get it, right?
Yep.
So people, if you guys are going through, or if you have gone through trauma, and gosh, we've said it here on this show, Gil said it many times, we've all gone through it, and we're going to continue to go through it. Life isn't going to change, right? We could be, there's no way any of us can. We can live by every flipping commandment that there is, and we're still going to go through battles and issues. And we have to go through it to help us grow. By heavens, recognize that and know that there's other people that are going through it and have gone through it and have basically, I don't know, come out smelling better. You could say you fell in a bunch of horse manure and come out smelling better, right?
Help me grow.
Help you grow. And the spiritual side of things, guys, for those that are in recovery, you guys know this. You can't do it alone. None of us. There's not a one of us that walk this planet that can get ourselves out of the problems that we've either created ourselves or life is just created for us. We cannot do it alone. We can use help from people who support us, right? We can get support from other individuals. However, the main support that we need, we don't see it at all. But by gosh, we can talk to them, right? And again, whatever that higher power is for you, I'm not saying it has to be the same as mine, whatever it is for you, because we need that help. And you guys know what I'm talking about, especially those in the recovery. You guys definitely know what I'm talking about. Gosh, there's a lot of people in the recovery community that go out and look for service. I will make sure that Gil's information is in the notes. If you guys are looking to want to do some community stuff and help Gil and everyone out with the farm, give them a call. I'll make sure the email's on there. And now that number that's on the brochure, is that your cell phone number? Are you good with that being on there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to get your approval first. So, we'll put that number on there. So guys, get a hold of it, especially those are the recovery centers, right? You guys usually do a lot of things on the weekends where you do retreats and different stuff like this. Hey, maybe there's something that Gil's got going on where he could use a few more volunteers to help with
Trying to build a
something.
pasture for some of the horses in the round pen to help. I've been able to train all the horses I have without a round pen,
Okay.
but a lot of the people coming in and working want to work with a horse, and they feel more comfortable in a round pen. So we need to build a round pen. We need to build a pasture that they can stretch their legs in, so we don't, because I can't run with them when they want to run.
Yeah,
and
right.
we try to take them out of, walk them every day. We have another pasture where we just turn them loose and run. But for the ones who rotate into Gardner Village, they just have stalls, and we're trying to build a pasture right now.
Okay.
We're also working with West Jordan City to build a whole new facility that's going to have climate controlled barn, indoor riding, and it'll be anyway, it's going to be a much nicer facility that we can continue to do the educational outreach we do. Right now, today I went to 3 different hospital facilities with animals to bring joy. It's for for me, that's what we're here for.
I love it.
So, anyway, it's just people want to help with that. They want to, I'd love to see that grow and other people get involved. So it's not just me going out.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, you need some help, right? And as we get up there in age, I don't like to use the old word, right?
That's right.
So yeah, as we get up there, it gets a little harder. It definitely gets a little harder. And the end of the day is a lot rougher on us, right? Because
It is.
we don't have that energy that we had 20 years ago or even 15 years ago. Yeah, yeah.
Even
amen to
5
that.
for me.
Even 5, yeah. So, Gil, as we get ready to sign off here, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners before we sign off?
Just reach out to the farm, reach out, and if not the farm, find something that inspires you. Find there are so many of us out there that don't know how to ask, but need help. And if we're watching and looking, we can see and find those people and offer the help. And the high that Clay talked about feeling through service, one of the differences is that high lasts a lot longer and
Cheaper too.
cheaper, yeah, a lot cheaper, but it stays with you and it doesn't go away. And the next time you serve, it's added upon, and it's there is hope and healing. There's healing through service. And when I back in the day prior to my healing, and doing all the success things in life, and I was on the speaking circuit to positive motivational education stuff, and we would teach people how to overcome objections, the facing how to relate to people. And one of the things I always taught was the feel, felt, found method. That if somebody gave you an objection, you say, "Oh, I know how you feel. I felt the same way. Let me tell you what I found." That's bullshit. No one knows how you feel. I don't know how you feel. I don't know how Al feels. He could share with me, but I still don't understand. There's one person who knows how you feel, and that's the Savior. For me, he knows how I feel. He knows how you feel. He has felt that pain, and you can turn to that. That's where the healing. And my therapist said it can come without it. I could have taken 3 years to go through healing instead of 18 months. But he speeds it up. And it's true healing. He loves you. He cares about you. He knows you and he knows what you've been through. He doesn't. It's not about judging what you've done because of what you've been through or what you haven't done. You have value. You have worth that is independent from anything you've done or haven't done. Because you have value. And the other people you run into every day, they're going through their own shit. Yeah. And they might say a harsh word to you. They might throw you an angry glance. They might cut you off and try whatever it is, and could be at work, could be at home. But we don't know how they're feeling. There's no way possibly you could understand what they're feeling and going through. There's no way I can understand what they're going through or what you're going through. But our Savior understands. Because he's love. And that's all. God is love. And I encourage you to reach out to somewhere you can feel that love and share that love. And if you want to come down to the farm and help shovel shit, we invite you down. It's actually one of my favorite things to do because the animals can't do it for themselves and it needs to be done every day. It's like dishes, you gotta wash them.
Yeah.
And so please come down and or go somewhere. And sharing that love that's out there. You'll find purpose in the pain you've been through. And you'll find hope in the healing process. And there is hope. There's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes, there is.
And tell you, hadn't had an income for 11 years until recently, and I won't go into that one, but just recently God intervened and rescued me from a financial situation. I run out of things I could sell at the pawn shop. And so I've lived a millionaire lifestyle. And financially, I've been broke. But I'm one of the richest men I know. Because of the lives that touch mine. And the animals and the people just like you. That I finally come to understand that God loves you as much as he loves me and the next guy. And if he loves me, I can love you, can love the next guy. But it's okay if I don't love somebody who I'm struggling with. And I have a few.
Yes, I have a few as well.
But anyway, just there's hope in him. You can feel that, and you can have that joy that passes all understanding. And you don't need to bury the pain. Feel it, move through it.
Yes.
You don't get that sliver out, but it continue to fester and hurt. But move through it, feel the pain, and find the light on the other side.
Love it. It's a great message. Hope you guys got it, and I hope you guys really enjoyed this episode because it was a great episode. And again, it was a little different, yet it falls right underneath that same umbrella. It really does. That's why I really wanted to have Gil come on the show because, yeah, I really felt it was going to be very, very special. The message and everything that was behind it. So, Gil, again, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to say thank you to Marlene for mentioning Gil to me when we were at the rodeo. So, Marlene, I don't know if you watched the show, but thank you so much for bringing this out. And while we're at it, hey, man, we just want to say thank you to all our sponsors. Thank you, guys, all our listeners, all our guests co-hosts. Guys, again, none of this would be possible if it wasn't for you. And that's just really how it is. None of this, I mean, this has been going 2.5 years now. The only reason why it's gone 2.5 years is because of you guys. Not because of anything I'm doing, it's just because of you. So before we sign off, guys, again, I want to remind you to mark your calendars for Saturday, October 7th from 1 to 6, the Healing Utah Success Summit at the Miller Free Enterprise Building in Sandy. Get your tickets. You can find stuff on my Facebook page, Roosh Recovery. You can find it on Curtis's Marsh, Brad Neufeld, Mallory Roosh. I mean, gosh, you'll find it under all our Facebook pages. Come out and be inspired and be educated about addiction. We're going to end it as we do with every show, guys. Remember, addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out. And now I'll move forward and we'll hit